All right, hello everybody. Thanks for joining me in our session today, where we're going to dive into the realm of open hybrid data lakes. And today we're going to be discussing the intricacies of the modern data landscape and managing information seamlessly across on-premise and cloud environments. So to introduce myself, I'm Allison Huslid. I'm the Senior Vice President of Product at Starburst, and I'm really excited to be here with you all today at Big Data London. As I've had the opportunity to walk around the floor and see all the amazing products out there, it's really exciting to see just how many pieces of software and technologies there are out there to help us with many of our most pressing data challenges. So while we're on our journey today in this session to figure out how we can best use all of our data for actionable insights, while we're also venturing into uncharted territories, my goal today with you is to explore how we can leverage all of the investments that we've already made to empower us rather than hinder our progress towards getting to those actionable insights. All right, so data everywhere. I think this is the world that many businesses live in today. We know that data permeates all facets of our business. It's generated from applications, every piece of hardware that we have. Also, you see it in customer contact information and inventory levels, all those things that are really out there in the known space. But it's also lurking in different things that you don't see, spreadsheets on laptops, things that are in the business intelligence programs as well. And I'm not really here today to dive into the volume and variety of data and how important it is. I'm sure you already know that because you're here at Big Data London. So instead, what is most striking to me in this particular phrase is, but not a thought to think. Of course, this is kind of exaggerated, but it does give us the key, the thinking to really dive deeper into how effective and efficient we might be in leveraging all of our data. So while it appears simple on slides and architectural diagrams, that the truth is data management is a complex undertaking. It's not as simple as extract, transform, and load and analyze. So I know we all aspire to be data-driven, that we celebrate both our minor and major victories as we get along the way. However, to establish a culture that's truly data-driven, it's not effortless. It's far from it. It is an enormous manual effort. It brings on its own set of burdens and consumes valuable time in your organizations and a lot of expense. So it often only involves a fraction of the data that you actually have available to you, and you're not actually leveraging all the potential it has. And it's not just Starburst or us in this room saying this. This is a result of a Boston Consulting Group survey that surveyed 300 data leaders. And what they found is that over 50% of those surveyed cite that complexity of their architecture is a really significant pain point to them leveraging all of their data effectively. And so as a result, companies do find themselves at a tipping point. They're drowning in all of their data and overburdened with those complexities and costs. So how did we get to this place? This is basically, let's take a step back and confront this complexity of data sprawl. You've got all of these tools, you've got business intelligence, you've got all these data, you've got your data lakes, you've got data marts, you've got thousands of ETL jobs running all the time and special purpose, disconnected, possibly duplicated data sources. And so we are bombarded with all of these tools that we get to use, which are exciting, but they all solve one specific niche problem, one piece of the puzzle. And so as this technology evolves, we're constantly asking ourselves, and expecting to acquire new skill sets in order to actually keep moving forward. Languages, create new integrations, and lift and shift of data and workloads and processes to different places, from on-premise to the cloud, for example. And it's kind of like a really intricate puzzle and set of pieces you're trying to put all together to make it all work. And so what it often feels like an never-ending task to get them all working together. And so with this environment, we find ourselves in a perpetual cycle of data movement, patchwork, and piecing all the bits together. And ultimately, you end up with these complex pipelines that are hastily assembled to transform raw data, move data, et cetera. And so we know this is a continuous struggle that demands both time and effort, both for probably many of you in this room, as well as many of the customers we have at Starburst. And so, not to be too condescending, for instance, I don't mean it that way, but is that something that sound familiar to you in your organization? Are you familiar with having that data sprawl? And so this image is actually the first image that comes up on Google Images when you search for the word silos. And of course, a farmer would love this. This is all this great place to store your grains, etc. But I hope from a data strategy perspective for you all, your sake, that this is not what your data strategy looks like or not what you're optimizing for. unfortunately, we know that with almost every customer we get to speak to at Starburst, that's often the reality in their organizations. All the data is there that you need to actually answer all the questions you have and derive those insights, but actually getting access to that data and using it in a meaningful and effective way is ultimately a challenge, and it forces you to figure out different and new ways to access and organize that data. And so let's kind of dive a little bit into this critical aspect of your data management and being able to leverage your data, which is usually your infrastructure. That's ultimately what ends up driving those downstream silos in different organizations. You start with the fragmented infrastructure, and of course we know that many people are making a journey from on-premise to cloud, and we know this is not a quick fix, it's not a quick turnaround, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so we've all heard digital transformation is that multi-year endeavor. And we all acknowledge there are many benefits to going through this transformation, but as you scale it out for efficiency on the cloud, you find yourself still juggling those on-premise systems now in addition to these new cloud systems as you're going through that migration. And so you really need to think about how you're securing access to private clouds versus public clouds and your on-premise data sources and navigating all those stringent requirements around data access or compliance requirements. And so while at the end, state your end users get to use these one single dashboard likely, there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes to make those informed decisions and that data available to those users. And so in addressing this issue and really getting through these various infrastructure change points and making them more seamless is how we're going to help folks have a more effective data management strategy. All right, so truth be told, I think we all know data silos are not a new thing. They've been here since the beginning of time, as far as I can remember, that's for sure. But they continue to be a challenge as people try and find that elusive single source of truth. So naturally, you get these new and different types of data. You've got all these disparate systems, difficult to maintain, difficult to access, and more of these continue to get brought into the organization. This is typically how the starting point happens. Then you've got new data lakes, these new technologies that have come up over the last several decades. You've got warehouses, data lakes, these monolithic architectures. Oftentimes they're closed systems and they're not really open to plugging into each other, and they're quite expensive to scale. And then you end up with, over time, you're going to continue to introduce these new applications and architectures, and this just becomes an endless cycle, an endless loop of things happening within an organization as you continue to adopt these new technologies, new data sources, and it's just never ending. And so as we think about it, where do we all go from here to actually solve for that problem, to solve for that vicious cycle that keeps happening within our organizations that are creating those data silos? So the key lies actually in embracing a hybrid cloud architecture and a decentralized approach to data sources, whether they're on-premise or in the cloud or both in your organization. When it comes to how a business manages its data, cloud first isn't necessarily going to mean cloud only. It's going to mean that you're going to have performance and cost considerations as you decide where and how you will store your data. And often, the truth is the cloud isn't going to be a silver bullet for many organizations at first, and they're going to continue to navigate that hybrid world for quite a time to come. And so there are ways for companies to manage their data in an accessible and scalable environment that supports both cloud and on-premise environments simultaneously. If you need to span several environments, that approach can give you the flexibility to be agile and react to changes, bring on those new data sources, adopt those new technologies, and gradually make those transformations happen over time in a way that's as least disruptive to your organization as possible and meets the specific needs of your teams. And so that hybrid environment can provide the best of both worlds, and while the cloud's going to deliver that agility you're likely looking for as you make that transformation, the on-premise systems can be more cost efficient for older legacy data, old use cases that you have that it's just not worth it to move it. So you have that opportunity to make those cost and performance trade-offs as you go. And so by embracing that reality of a hybrid architecture and a decentralized data ecosystem, you can have a course and you can chart this path forward that can be more efficient in terms of your data management and your cost and performance, and actually starts to eliminate and break down those silos for your organization. So when we think about the space we're operating in, we believe that the data landscape is going to have three key attributes to it. First is it's going to be open. We believe open source will be the standard point or central point of a data architecture. We expect it to be distributed, that centralization is not really a viable option, nor the path forward. That's been the elusive thing everybody's been trying to obtain, but not really a viable option. So distributed is going to be the way forward. And finally, ever evolving. We know the only constant is change, and that is true for your data as well. You're going to continue to bring new applications, new insights, Mergers and acquisitions is another example of you're just going to continue to have new, different data sources, different applications that are going to continue to drive change within your data landscape. And so while the direction of the industry is exciting, the reality is that there's a lot of challenges on the ground for folks who are basically writing SQL and trying to answer those questions every day. As that open source software proliferates, deploying and maintaining that reliably in your production environment can be challenging and timely and cumbersome. Managing it at scale becomes an even ever greater challenge as those grow and grow more. And finally, as needs in the business change, it's hard to keep up with them all, right? Being adaptable means you need to be nimble, agile, on your feet, and that just continues to be an ever thing that someone has to have top of mind as they're continuing to change and adapt their data architecture. And so there isn't really an easy button for this. Unfortunately, I think we all wish there were. There's just a big dream that we all have of having an easy button, but we do believe we can provide an easier button for organizations that make better use of your existing infrastructure and investments. So as you grow, as your things are changing, as you're adapting, you can actually get the benefits and flexibility and scalability of the data lake while getting the performance and ease of use of a data warehouse, and ultimately doing that with a virtualization layer that can provide that access and governance to all of your users in a scalable way, a safe way, a compliant way. And so we believe that we're all chasing that dream of faster time to insights, but ultimately we're often forced into these expensive approaches to doing that and forced to change our hardware and our infrastructure. But we believe an open and hybrid data lake architecture is the best path forward, so you can best manage your data and take advantage of your investments you already have, while being able to leverage all of your data to its fullest potential. And so let's build out a bit of this hardware, this architectural diagram. We believe that modern data lake will become the center of data gravity for most organizations. And to help you activate data in and around the lake is the number one way we can help bring that open hybrid lake architecture. And we know it's never going to really be truly that simple. But we did talk about how data silos are everywhere. Pure centralization or moving it all into one place is not going to be a viable reality for you. And so preparing your data for that. So we believe the most efficient, most effective, most cost-effective and performant place to have your data is in a data lake. And there will always be new data types and data sources created by other businesses in your organization. So we need to be able to adapt to those as they come. And so we need to leverage that flexibility and scalability of the data in the lake, but also help you access all of these other disparate data sources and connect that information together and really reduce things like transformations and the movement of data so you don't have copious numbers of copies, et cetera, really allowing you to take advantage of that full scope of your data all from one efficient place and make it easy to share for consumption purposes with analysts. Alrighty, so we believe, again, this modern data lake architecture actually solves a lot of those problems that we've been talking about here with data silos and disparate data sources. So when we think about a modern data lake at Starburst, there are some core components that we talk about quite a bit here. First, it has to be built on pretty efficient and cost-effective storage and compute. So that means you can scale up and down your storage in a cost-effective way. It needs to be built on top of open source and open file formats. So you can have your data remain portable and it can remain yours. It's not locked into a single vendor using their proprietary formats. And of course, you need a scalable, performant query engine on top of all of these open to file formats and open table formats, and you really need a very fast, very scalable, high performance query engine to leverage all of that data. And finally, we need to be able to access all of those data sources we talked about that are probably never going to go on the lake, that are going to be in all those new data sources that keep getting spun up or continue to remain outside the lake for whatever reason makes sense from a performance or cost perspective. And so, we believe that with this type of an architecture, you get a lot of benefits. You get that single point of access and governance for all of those data sources, the lake and otherwise. You get advanced warehouse-like capabilities that actually give you the same experience on a data lake that you would otherwise not have in past times. It's a vendor agnostic approach to this as well. So again, not having to have your data locked into one vendor in a proprietary format, using proprietary language and functions, et cetera, because you're leveraging those open standards. And it's scalable and cost effective because you are making use of commodity storage and compute when it makes the most sense for your use cases and workloads. So with that, we can continue. Oh, sorry. Hit the button twice. Alrighty, so with that, we believe the power in the world of a hybrid cloud architecture, Trino really shines as that open source multi-processing engine for the lake. However, we also acknowledge that self-deploying and managing something like an open source project within a production environment can be highly costly and a substantial challenge for the organization. So that's where we come in as Starburst. We basically bring a fully managed, enterprise-grade Trino data lake analytics platform powered by that open source software. And we basically enhance every part of the data journey by bringing in performance on top of open source Trino with things like warp speed, which is our smart indexing and caching solution. We also have enhanced fault-tolerant execution, which is a optimization or an execution mode that is based in the Trino open source project. We also are introducing things like result set caching. So again, trying to bring additional performance capabilities and benefits on top of that really powerful engine that is Trino. We also have things to help you scale simply. So things like auto-scaling and cluster scheduling and idle shutdown mean, one, you're able to flex with your workloads as needed, but you're also able to shut things down really quickly when you don't need to have them running. So you're saving on costs while still getting the performance and scalability that you need. And finally, with ease of use, especially on our SaaS product called Galaxy, we have automatic upgrades, we provide universal search, we have 24/7 support to make sure that you have the easiest experience possible and are backed up when you need to be to make sure that your experience using the product continues to be amazing and flawless. And then finally, we provide a really critical governance layer, which we call Gravity, and I'll show that on the next slide in a moment. But basically, these provides things like role-based access control, attribute-based access control, which can be leveraged by tagging certain data assets. We have data products, which is the ability to curate, create, and then share those data sets with metadata around them, such as ownership or what best that data should be leveraged for. And finally, data observability, so you can see where and how your data is moving through various data sources, with things like lineage and quality checks along the way. Alrighty, so when we look at Galaxy, as I mentioned, again, we have these various layers. Again, this is our self-managed product. We also have Starburst Enterprise, which customers can deploy anywhere they'd like, whether on-premise or in one of the 3 major cloud providers or things like OpenShift. But Galaxy really will be that easy to get started, easy to use button for Trino and getting the power of that engine. And again, within this platform, you're going to find the secure, reliable, enterprise-ready cloud product. It's crafted on top of Trino, as I mentioned, and it's really optimized for significant performance, even above and beyond what Trino can offer alone. We've also made things really easy, again, for that access and governance and discovery layer with Gravity. And this includes things like that role-based access control and attribute-based access control that I mentioned before, as well as data products and all of that universal search and discovery tooling that we have capable there. And again, we don't force you into any one storage solution. We feel that, again, as we said earlier, that the data lake is going to become the center of gravity for data in organizations, and then there will continue to be those other data sources. So again, we support all those open formats, whether it's Delta or Iceberg, as well as any object storage you might be using across a plethora, dozens of data sources between Galaxy and Enterprise Edition as well. And so from there, this is basically a really simple or easy to get started solution. It's an easy and open data lake analytics platform that allows you to effectively start your journey onto this cloud and this hybrid, easy, open data lake architecture. And so we know that having this innovation and automation available is really going to help us move in the future directions that we need to within our organizations using our data. And we know that AI is becoming a critical component of many organizations' strategies. And so how can Starburst Galaxy and our products here help create that foundation for you to be able to do that by leveraging all of your data? And so we know that so if you don't have a good data strategy, you don't have good AI strategy. Effectively, we know that AI being successful is predicated on having all of the data there and ready to train models on. And so they've obviously there's been a hype cycle around this recently, but we know that's not going to go away anytime soon. Again, ChatGPT has made generative AI a very common household name. And so, of course, there's rapid innovations in the hardware, GPUs, et cetera, that make this even more powerful than ever before. And so, but we always know that the data access for that training, for those models, will ultimately be the most important factor in how effectively you can leverage that technology in order to be able to move your organization forward. And so we basically do this within Starburst by fueling that with all of the model training. So effectively, you can explore, enrich, and organize your data using Starburst so you can more efficiently have it ready for analysts, data preparation, and model training. Also for model serving and inference, you effectively can use this. They can be as intelligent, as I mentioned, as the data you have access to. And so this gives your models to basically go and query live data or any of your data sources right out the gate, and so they can provide the most accurate and complete responses possible. Alrighty, so when we think about one of our customers that have leveraged Starburst, Sky, which I'm sure many of you here in the UK are familiar with, faced the